Hey friends, welcome back, and I hope you're all doing wonderful today. It's time for more Reddit stories about entitled people, Karens, and everything in between. So we're getting right into it. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's begin. This poorly written letter from my passive-aggressive neighbor telling me to remove my illegally owned plants from my property. The letter reads, "Dear blank, it has come to our attention to our residents of blank that the potted plants outside of your porch are not real and decoration. This will reflect extremely poorly to our houses and other constituencies, I guess, in the area who have real plants who might wish to sell their homes one day, and buyers running away when they saw your plants. Earlier this week, myself and 14 other neighbors, including the state environment official, have held a group meeting to discuss the appropriate action necessary to solve this issue. As of this writing, we have decided to grant you 2 days to remove the selected plants from your porch. If you choose to not correspond, there might be an official action taken that will include the police called to write an lawsuit, or the flowery being removed and discarded of quite immediately. You must within 2 days minimum. Note, we have chose to make this letter anonymous to protect our legal right and to grant you the same legal opportunities. Thank you." So this mystery person was actually so outraged about OP having plants outside their house that they went through the trouble of attempting to make this letter look official, yet still couldn't be bothered to use correct spelling or grammar. Oh, but you better take it seriously, OP, because they even had a meeting with the state environment official. Oh yeah, and don't forget to comply within 2 days minimum, not maximum, but minimum, because you sure don't want them to get the police to write a lawsuit, because that's definitely how it works. Idiot tries to follow me home because I wouldn't fix his truck for practically free, so I took the scenic route. Don't worry, I called a rescue. He's a very entitled veteran and supposedly a Purple Heart one. He's also very racist. One of the reasons my boss will absolutely not have him as a customer during business hours, but will work on his truck after hours with no one else around. The usual MO is he tries to fix something on his truck and screws it up, then expects everyone else to fix it for really cheap, using his veteran status as a guilt trip because he already had done half the work himself. This time he, quote, fixed his brakes, and somehow no longer had rear brakes. His truck is 2 bolt failures away from a junkyard. My boss is out of town, so I was in charge for the week, with strict instructions to not help him while he's out. He showed up at the shop today demanding I fix his truck. I had already closed the building up and was ready to leave. I told him when G gets back he'll fix your truck. He didn't like that answer, then said something I picked up on to be a racist remark, and told him to F off until G gets back. He gets pissed and grabs a piece of wood and throws it into the desert. I start my drive home, and a second or two later I notice his truck behind me and matching my lane changes. I live 40 miles away, so I knew he wouldn't keep up with me in the hills, and I didn't want to kill him by outpacing him. So I call my friend who's only about 9 to 10 miles in the middle of the desert, and told him I was going to swing by because I think I'm being followed, and I was going to take the scenic route. He told me he was going to meet me at the halfway point, and if he had to, he would scare him off. The scenic route is 7 miles of rough desert road that will destroy any truck without long travel suspension. A lot of locals use it to test and tune their desert off-roaders. I get to the turnoff into the trail and I see his headlights turn in behind me. At that point, I shut my lights off and turn on my desert headlights and floor it. I made sure to lure him into the first set of jumps. Right before the jumps, I kicked up a bunch of dust, turned off all the lights, and waited at the other end. I see his headlights again and I could tell he cleared the first jump, but I could see his headlights shake going down, which is a sign of suspension failure from hitting the ground hard. I turned on all my lights so he could see where I was as I left and proceeded to my friend's location. He was waiting for me with his brother and a big crap-eating grin. He told me he saw me about a mile away because of the lights, but couldn't see the other truck behind, and he just said, "Looks like he must have missed the first jump. I'm gonna call a rescue." We hung out another few minutes and took a different trail that led me to the highway home. Later in the evening, I get a call that he was fine, but his truck was literally bent at the cabin bed from the 5-foot drop he experienced. He said he got lost going home. I plan on calling G in the morning and letting him know I'm having that dumbass trespass from the shop for that stunt. Update: G has been contacted. He's taking my side on this, and he's no longer welcomed at the shop. He's been formally trespassed by the sheriff. I also saw the truck. It's literally bent with the bed and the cab pressed into each other at another shop. Recreationally entitled. I was cycling at a local park earlier today. It's a sandy area, so I lower the pressure in the tires to make rolling over obstacles easier. I got back to the parking lot, put the bike on the car rack, pulled out a pump and filled the tires back up to normal pressure. As I disconnected the pump and moved to stow it in the car and drive home, someone cleared their throat loudly behind me. I turned around and there was a woman there with a bike with an obvious flat, who said, "You took long enough to finish, doing your bike first instead of a park visitor's. Now pump up my tires." I goggled and obviously looked confused because she continued, "Do your job." I was dressed in a khaki green polo shirt and my car is green, and realized that she thought I worked for the park district. I don't work for the park district. This is my car and bike. She didn't believe me and wanted my supervisor's name, and demanded again that I fill up her tire. At this point, I was getting annoyed. I do not work here. If you had asked nicely, I might have helped you, but your high-handed bullcrap means I won't. I'm leaving now. I got in the car and started it, and she stood behind the car, refusing to let me back out, all the while directing a steady stream of invective at me with surprising variety and volume. Thankfully, a real park ranger heard the noise and walked over. She told him I wasn't doing my job and had refused to help her, and she wanted to report me to the park supervisor. I explained that I was trying to leave and she was blocking me in because she wanted me to fill her tire after calling me a number of delightful names, including lazy public employee. He looked at me, looked at her, shook his head as if to say, "Again?" and told her, "He doesn't work for us. He has no obligation to do anything for you. And if this is how you're behaving, I can see why he won't help you. Now please move and let him leave." After a little more discussion, including the ranger telling her that he'd call the local police for some sort of unlawful detainment if she didn't let me go, she moved. As I drove off, she was giving the ranger a piece of her mind at the top of her lungs. Her tire probably remains flat. The HOA towing saga. Okay, so back in May, I was in a car accident in my company car. It got totaled by my insurance. I chose to keep it because it was still drivable and I just had a lot of work done to it. New wrap motor and transmission were just rebuilt 18 months ago. That forced me to file for a salvage title and return to my registration. So I parked it in my private garage that doesn't have a garage door. It sat without any notice or complaint for 5 months. I removed the trunk lid to get some custom wiring done on the inside of it. The very next day, it was gone out of my garage. I called the cops. They checked to see if it was towed, and they don't have it on the list of towed cars. So we start filling the stolen vehicle report, and halfway through, I get a call from the HOA telling me they towed the car. So I cancel the report and ask dispatch to send police to the tow yard. I head over to the tow yard as well. When I arrive, the manager is standing right in the front area. I tell him, "You stole my car and I want it returned. Cops are on the way." His response is, "I didn't steal it. Manager had me tow it." I ask if it was my management, as in landlord, or HOA management who authorized it. He ignored me and went into the office for a few minutes. Later, he returns with a body cam, taser, and gun. At this time, I walked into the open tow yard to try to see if I could see my car and can't locate it. I hear, "Get the f*** out of the yard or I'll tase you." I turn to see Mr. Wannabe Cop/tow manager walking up to me. I freeze up and start shutting down due to my autism. I just don't move or say anything. I am able to center myself enough to start walking as he starts to push me. Mind you, I am 6 feet and 300 pounds. He is maybe 175 pounds soaking wet and 6 inches shorter than me. I see cops pulling up, so I just calmly walk towards the cops, ignoring the guy as I walk out the gate. The cops tell me it's a civil matter and that I have to take him to court. They can't do anything. So I leave and head to court to file the paperwork. Ends up taking a month to get the papers filed because I had to send a demand letter, etc. before I could file. I also contact the HOA management company and inform them of the fact that the tow company business license is revoked, also of the many violations they committed by having my car towed. In turn, the 22-year-old idiot that is in charge of our property tells me if I file a lawsuit, him and his buddies will make me regret that choice. I file a trespass order that day and have it served to him as well. Get all that done, then the HOA VP reaches out to me on Facebook, asking me to attend the HOA meeting. I inform him in the chat logs that the HOA manager has a TPO. So I plan to be at the meeting with all my documentation and work out a solution that's fair to everyone. I show up to the meeting with several owners who were on my side, and witnesses to the towing without notice, the revoked towing company license, etc. I see the trespass order guy immediately and inform him that he needs to leave, that he is in violation. That is when the HOA VP tells me that he has cops on the way to trespass me from the clubhouse, because I'm not an owner. I leave without incident or yelling. We go to court 3 days later. Went to court suing both the HOA and the tow company because in our CC&Rs about parking, it states specifically that the penalty for any violation is a $100 fine, max allowed by the law. They also tried to take a picture of a violation notice on my car, but forgot to delete the metadata from the photo. The data showed up with the date taken 1 day after it was towed. The judge looked at that metadata info, and it was also made clear that the HOA does not own our roads. They are county property. The judge immediately stopped the case and said she heard enough. She ordered the HOA to pay the $2,400+ tow and impound fee, and told me to file a small claims action to get paid for a loss of use. Oh, the sweet taste of justice. I visited a hotel lobby with my significant other and overheard a lady cussing out the front desk workers, so I cussed her out for them. I don't work in hotels, but I have worked in the service industry for a while. I was walking around the city with my partner. I don't know the city well, but I recognized in my opinion, very nice hotel I had done some freelance photography work at a couple years back. It's definitely expensive to stay here, much above my pay grade. We walked into the lobby to check out how beautiful it was, and the first thing we notice is the voice of a woman cursing out the front desk worker in front of us. When she started loudly yelling at the worker who had absolute submissive body language, the feelings of being in their shoes came over me. People at the lobby bar were looking and recording this lady going off on a front desk worker, like they did something to her personally. Maybe I didn't have any right, but to a fellow service worker I felt an obligation to say what they were all thinking. I approached and matched her tone. "Excuse me, you need to shut the f*** up and treat these people with respect." Many choice words were exchanged from both sides, and I have no regrets. The front desk worker and the security guard who asked me to let him handle the situation were both smiling, and I feel like I didn't specifically do the wrong thing. People know service workers can't defend themselves without guaranteed consequences, so I'm happy I said what they were thinking. What are they gonna do, fire me? Thank you, hospitality workers, from a bartender. That's gonna be all for today, guys. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed, and also subscribe to the channel for more if you haven't already. So have an awesome day, take care, and I'll see you next time.